In 2026, the Middle East, well, it erupted into a war that pulled in the United States and Israel against Iran. And the consequences, they rippled across the entire globe. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how it all happened and why it matters so much. Okay, let's set the scene. The date is February 28th, 2026. For years, this tense, undeclared shadow war had been playing out. But on this day, all of that changed. The shadows just vanished, and the world was suddenly staring at a direct, high-stakes conflict that would completely reshape the Middle East. So how did it all kick off? Well, this wasn't some slow-burn escalation or a minor border skirmish. No, this thing started with a sudden, absolutely overwhelming show of force. The Pentagon, of course, had a name for it, Operation Epic Fury. And the first wave of these joint U.S.-Israeli airstrikes hit right at the heart of Iran. We're talking major cities, the capital Tehran, along with key military and government sites in Isfahan, Qom, and others. This was a textbook decapitation strike, an attempt to cripple Iran's ability to even fight back by taking out its entire leadership right from the get-go. And the sheer scale of this attack, it was just unprecedented. As the Times of Israel reported, we're talking about 200 jets in the air. This was not a warning shot. This was a massive, coordinated air campaign designed to completely overwhelm and cripple Iran from the very first hour. And their primary objective? It was achieved almost immediately. Iran's supreme leader for over 3 decades, Ali Khamenei, was killed when his compound in Tehran was completely destroyed. Just like that, in a single stroke, the entire political landscape of Iran, and really the whole region, was fundamentally changed forever. But an attack of this magnitude, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. To really get why this happened, we've got to rewind the clock and look at the years of escalating tension that built up to this exact moment. A huge piece of this puzzle is something called the Abraham Accords, signed way back in 2020. Now, on the surface, they were all about peace and economic cooperation. But if you dig a little deeper, you see they basically created a new anti-Iran coalition in the Middle East, bringing Israel together with Gulf states like the UAE and Bahrain, who all shared a common fear of Tehran. This new alliance really laid the groundwork for the military cooperation we saw in 2026. What's so wild about this timeline is just how fast everything escalated. After the Abraham Accords, the dominoes just started to fall. In late 2024, the UN's nuclear watchdog raises this huge alarm about Iran's uranium enrichment. All through 2025, you have this flurry of diplomatic efforts that just go absolutely nowhere. And then what happens? By February 2026, the talks completely collapse. The window for a peaceful solution, it didn't just close, it slammed shut. So this brings us to the core question, right? What was the justification for an attack like this? The US and Israel, they had a very clear rationale, but it was immediately challenged by, well, pretty much the rest of the world. Okay, so the US and Israel argued they were acting in self-defense, trying to prevent an imminent threat. Their goals were pretty clear: neutralize Iran's nuclear and missile programs and ultimately trigger regime change. But that whole story was challenged right away. The UN Secretary General called the strike a flat-out violation of international law. And maybe the most damning part? The UN's own nuclear chief had said that while Iran's program was advanced, they were not just days or weeks away from having a weapon. The attack was supposed to be decisive, but Iran's response was immediate, and it was fierce. The conflict did not stay contained within Iran's borders for long. It exploded across the entire region. Iran's retaliation was swift, and it was incredibly far-reaching. They unleashed a barrage of ballistic missiles and drones, not just at Israel, but at U.S. military bases all over the Middle East. We're talking from Qatar to Turkey. American bases in 8 different countries came under fire. In just a matter of hours, what started as a targeted strike became a full-blown regional war. And beyond the military chess match, there was an immediate, devastating human cost. Iranian authorities reported that 1,255 people were killed in that opening wave of strikes. That number represents lives lost, families completely shattered. And the majority of them, they said, were civilians just caught in the crossfire. The economic fallout was just as fast. Iran moved to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Now you have to understand, this is a tiny waterway that a huge chunk of the world's oil and gas flows through. The impact was instant. It was like a vital artery of the global economy had just been severed, sending massive shockwaves through markets everywhere. So now you have a region on fire, global markets in total turmoil, and the entire world was forced to react to a crisis that was escalating literally by the hour. The economic crisis was messy, and it was global. It wasn't just about oil prices skyrocketing, though they absolutely did. Stock markets all over the world tumbled. Global shipping was thrown into complete chaos. And with airspace closures everywhere, major airlines had to cancel flights, while the cost of insuring anything from cargo ships to airplanes just went through the roof. So the international reaction was this mix of condemnation and just pure crisis management. Diplomatically, you had the UN leading the charge, denouncing the strikes. On the military front, Iran's ally, Hezbollah, immediately opened a second front against Israel from Lebanon. Meanwhile, European powers were scrambling to de-escalate, sending warships to the Mediterranean. And for regular people, the conflict hit home, as thousands were left stranded by all the flight cancellations. So where does all of that leave us? Well, the stated goal of the attack was regime change, but the result was a region engulfed in flames, a new hardline supreme leader in Iran, and a world just grappling with profound instability. The question we're left with isn't whether the old dangers were removed, but what new and maybe even greater dangers have been unleashed in their place. And that's a question the world is still struggling